Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. And today I'm reviewing Distill, the game designed by Dave Beck that is currently or soon to be on Kickstarter, link in the description down below. Now, Distilled is ultimately a game about, well, distilling alcohol. It's a game where the goal is to get the most spirit points, the most SP. Those are going to be the points you gather for a variety of different things, from the bottles you collect, from the spirits you age, from the various cards you acquire. Lots of different things will give you spirit points in this game. Some awards, a whole bunch of different stuff. The game is going to take place across 7 rounds. That is going to be in the advanced game. We're talking more about the advanced game here. There is an introductory game. I generally recommend diving directly into the advanced game. It's not a lot to grasp, and it's much more rewarding. But yeah, it's going to be 7 rounds. You're going to be playing across 7 rounds, and in each of those rounds, you're going to have 2 phases to the game. You're going to have a phase where you're going to be acquiring a variety of cards in order to basically improve your chances, what you're trying to brew, to give you all the options you want in this game. There's a lot to cover. We'll come back to that in a second. But then past that, once you're done with the build-up of that, you're going to go ahead and attempt to distill the alcohol you are trying to make in this case. There's going to be a whole ingredient list or recipe list over here of you can go through different types of things from gin to whiskey to rum to different types of alcohol that you're trying to distill over here. And you're going to go ahead and try to distill that alcohol in order to either sell it or alternatively to age it for a few rounds and then sell it from there. That's basically the game. You're going to do that for 7 rounds, and at the end of 7 rounds, whoever has the most points wins. Now, there's a few more aspects going on because that's a very high-level abstraction of what's going on here. The game in general is almost a deck builder. I say almost a deck builder because if I say it's a deck builder, it tends to throw people off when I teach them. It is deck building adjacent. You have control to a degree over the cards that are entering your area, the cards that are entering your pantry. But it's not a typical deck build in the sense that you're shuffling up, drawing 5 cards, rinse, repeat, discard, shuffle, draw, etc. Rather, you are developing what goes into your pantry, and from your pantry what goes into your washback, because your washback is going to determine what it is that you are distilling this round. Perhaps this round I'm trying to distill vodka, which early game you're going to often be distilling vodka and moonshine. They are the easiest products to distill, and you don't really have a lot of money to actually get a lot done that early in the game. But as the game progresses, you're going to start acquiring recipes. You're going to buy recipe cubes over here to slot them onto your player board to show that you now own that recipe, that now I can brew, let's say if I take this one over here, maybe I can brew whiskey now because I've acquired that recipe. So I have a little bit more flexibility. Now when I try to do things in my washback, I have more options for whatever comes out. I may fail at one thing, but succeed at another, because in this game, you're always going to make something. That is guaranteed. You will either make vodka or moonshine at the very least. But you're often trying to do things better than that because they'll give you more points. They'll give you more SP, spirit points, in the game. They'll allow you to build better things, to get different labels, to have more flexibility and points and reward in this game. Now, the distilling process is ultimately going to require a variety of cards, plus a bottle and a barrel. That's what you're trying to do. You're brewing the alcohol, and then you're going to barrel it and bottle it, sell it off that way. Now, you're going to have your starting barrel and bottle, which is great, but you can't age things in your starting barrel. You're also going to need to buy certain recipes in order to be able to age things. Default moonshine and vodka can't be aged. They can just be sold. You're going to have to acquire a higher level recipe, whiskey, rum, saiju, or brandy, in order to actually age something before you sell it. And aging things can produce a lot of points, but at the cost of your economy. You're effectively giving up a sale now in order to hopefully get a more deluxeified brew of some sort before you actually sell it a few turns from now. Now, the variety of things going into it, like I said already, you're going to have your bottle, you're going to have your barrel, and then you're going to have a variety of ingredients from a basic market. You're going to have advanced ingredients over here, advanced items, and advanced distillery upgrades. Those distillery upgrades, think of them as your tableau. You're going to slot distillery upgrades into the 3 slots of your warehouse. They're going to give you a variety of abilities. Those abilities might be things like discounts and types of cards in the market. They might give you more control over the distillation process. They might give you a water every single round. They're going to be a variety of upgrades that are your tableau, your way of upgrading in the game. That's going to be your distillery upgrades. Then from there, you're going to have your ingredients, which is going to be the basic market and the advanced market. The basic market is kind of a fallback for many of them. They give you a guaranteed option to getting the various types of sugars you need, whether you need a grain, plant, or fruit sugar for your alcohol. You're guaranteed to find it in the basic market, but they're not going to necessarily give you points. So you often want to buy them from the advanced market, where it'll give you points, it'll give you a bit of money back when you sell it, but they have to actually be present in the advanced market. So the basic market is going to be a fallback there. Similarly, the barrels. You're going to have clay barrels and wood barrels necessary for different types of things you're brewing. And those barrels are only going to be relevant for when you're trying to actually age something over multiple rounds. But those barrels are going to be useful. You're going to have the basic market over here. As well as in the item market, you often have bottles and barrels, and you can acquire those as well. Again, those are necessary not for the distillation process, but rather for the sale process at the end of the distillation process. And then the ingredients. Whenever you want to brew something, you're going to have to look into your washback. You're going to have at least 1 sugar, and then one yeast and 1 water. That's going to be the 3 colors over here to illustrate that you need at least 1 yeast, 1 water, and 1 sugar of some type in order to actually brew something. So let's go ahead and play through a basic round, because I think that might be the best way to start this off. So I'm going to show you through a basic round, assuming I was just doing this myself. I'm going to start over here with a starting resource. I'm going to start with 1 yeast and 0 waters as my starting resources. I also start with 4 money. That's going to be the starting resources on this particular character. Let's go ahead and just walk through it. So I start with the yeast over here. Let's put these over here, and let's take my actions. Now, in the game, you're going to have 2 purchases from the basic round over here. On my turn, I can do any number of purchases from different areas. I can purchase a distillery upgrade, an ingredient, an item from the basic market, or an ingredient from the ingredient list over here, or a recipe from the recipe list over here, which I'm not going to do for the first round because I just need to get my economy going. So when I flip her over, she's going to go ahead. She allows me to sell every non-aged spirit for 1 money more, which gives me a little bit more motivation to focus on spirits that don't actually age rather than spirits that do age. To that end, I'm going to go ahead and ensure my first action is going to be acquiring a water, because I'm going to need at least 1 water to actually brew anything. That's going to go into my pantry. My pantry is just my store of ingredients. From there, I have a few options, but I'm trying to brew, I don't know if I'm trying to brew anything. Let's say, you know what? Given the market over there, I could acquire that. That will cost me 3. I could get that. So I could do this. So let's go ahead and show you a bit how this might play out. I'm going to pretend I don't have these ingredients yet. I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 coins to buy this ingredient, this recipe ingredient over here for the I cannot pronounce that alcohol type over there. I'm going to put those 2 coins there. I now have that ingredient. For my second action, I'm going to acquire a yeast. When you purchase a yeast, you're immediately going to gain 1 money. So I'm going to add a money, and then I'm going to use my remaining 3 money to purchase this plant sugar over here. And I'm going to add that to my board. And then I'm going to say I'm done. Now, usually you're doing this in turn order with the other players, all of them taking different things from the market. But right now I'm done. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attempt to brew that alcohol over there. And I'm going to have 2 yeasts, which I'm going to keep both of them there for a reason, and 1 water. Whenever you start the distillation process, you always are going to add an alcohol from the general supply to the distillery process for each of the various sugars you have in the center zone. In this case, I have 1 plant sugar, so I'm going to add 1 alcohol. Now, the problem is, I have 5 cards here, and whenever you do the distillation process, you're always going to shuffle it up and then remove the top and the bottom, which is a thematic aspect of removing the, I can't remember the terms for it because I don't distill alcohol, but you're moving the top and the bottom from your 2 things, and I remove a water, and I remove, Okay, so let me explain what happened here. Had I not removed this, well, let's go through what happened here, okay? Right now, these 2 are removed. They're going to go into my pantry, and then I'm going to reveal my other cards, and whatever's left is what I'm going to brew. In my case, I have no sugars whatsoever. I have no sugars over here. This requires, vodka requires any sugars, and moonshine is fulfilled if you have no sugars. So in my case, I have successfully brewed moonshine. I'm going to get 1 spirit point. I'm going to get 2 coins, and plus whatever coins are on these cards. In the case of the alcohol, I get 1 coin. So I have a total of 3 coins that I get from that brew, which is going to go to my supply. The alcohol and the yeast are going to go back to the deck. Had I not removed the plant sugar, had this plant sugar been left, then I could have successfully brewed this over here, because this distilled, because this would have needed 1 plant sugar. So you're always trying to distill something. You're always going to shuffle up the cards. You're going to add alcohol depending on the various sugars you have. And then you're going to shuffle it up, remove the top and the bottom, and that's what you distill. So you're often trying for something higher, and you might get something lower depending on how much you were able to pad your alcohol, because you could throw extra in. I could have thrown in an extra 2 or 3 or 4, but it's early game and I didn't have those resources yet, hence the decision. That said, I did walk away with 3 money, and I'm also going to grab a moonshine label, because I'm going to go ahead and sell it. I sold that right away. Oh, I apologize. I also need the barrels, which means I also get 2 more money out of that, so it's more than 3 money. I get the barrel and the bottle, because I sold those as well. Those are going to return because of my starting items, and then I'm going to get a moonshine label, and because I sold this right now, I can put this on any of these slots over here to acquire the benefit over there. And I don't know what I particularly want. Let's say there's an expensive thing over there. I'm going to go ahead and put the free upgrade over here. So I'm going to grab a free upgrade from the market, and I'm going to grab the modern mill, where doing the market phase, I can just discount any 1 ingredient by 2. So that's a pretty solid thing across the course of the game. That's going to save me a chunk of money. It's going to save me the 6 more rounds. I'm going to save 12 money off of that. That's pretty awesome. These are going to slide down, and then we're going to go ahead and end the round. That is basically how a round of Distilled plays out. But it's going to get more complicated. That first brew you distilled is the first thing you distilled is going to be a few coins, a few points, not a lot. You'll move up the track. I moved up 1 point of the track. Let's pretend I'm green. I moved 1 point of the track. Great. But a typical game of Distilled will often end in 100+ points, because you're going to get progressively better as your engine goes. That first thing you distill is not a lot. But when you slowly unlock that recipe for brandy, you're going to be getting an extra 13 points just for the fact that you brewed the brandy, and that's not even accounting for the fact that you're going to have a variety of cards in there that will be giving you points. You'll have advanced bottles, advanced ingredients, perhaps various distillery upgrades that will be rewarding you. And if you bottle and brew that brandy, whenever you put something into an actual barrel and you put it into your warehouse, so if you create a recipe, whatever it is, it goes into your warehouse, every round you'll be adding a flavor card to that recipe. Each round, that bottle is going to get more and more potent across each round until eventually you sell it, and you'll get not only the coins on the top of the flavor cards, but you'll also get a variety of points. In this case, I have 4 flavor cards. It's going to be an extra 10 points. You're going to have other things to be mindful of. You're going to have your signature recipe over here. You have your signature recipe. Every character has a signature recipe, which is going to give them a chunk of extra points if they fulfill that, along with a signature ingredient, which is helpful but not required for that recipe. You can get another one as well. There's going to be the rewards up here. You're going to have these rewards. You know, if you sell a spirit with 6 alcohol cards, that's going to be 7. That's a pretty cool one. I haven't seen that one yet. If you sell a spirit with 6 plus alcohol cards, it's going to be 120 proof, and you're going to get 7 points for that. If you sell 2 spirits in one round, because you aged one round, and then you sell the next round, and you sell in the same round, you get double sale, you get 5 points. Sophisticated, sell an aged spirit. There's going to be a variety of goals in the game that are going to give you extra points for things you do. You're going to have personal goals in the game that are going to be points for things you do. You're going to have all these cards, some of the market upgrades, some of the distillery upgrades are going to give you extra points for just owning them, in addition to giving you things throughout the game. You're going to have the ingredients that will constantly, I mean, the starting ingredients I had that I couldn't get anything more expensive, they were cheap, didn't give you a lot of points, but you can get more ingredients that if you brew something with this, you're getting 2 points. You're getting a chunks of extra points as you distill things. Like I said already, a game of Distilled often ends in 100 plus points, perhaps more, depending on how well your players are min-maxing their various engines. But ultimately, it's a game that in each round, you go through the market phase and you acquire the things you want. Then you go through the distillation phase and you distill what you want. Then you either sell or age that, and then you add flavor cards to whatever's being aged, rinse and repeat for 7 rounds, and that is Distilled. A lot going on here, and we'll talk about it. So, to begin with, the game length actually feels perfect. The game length tends to come in at around an hour and a half or so, but when I refer to the length, I don't necessarily mean the actual game time so much as the number of rounds. The number of rounds feels like the perfect amount. Any fewer, and I would want to get that better round in, and any longer, and it would start to feel like it drags out. At 7 rounds, Distilled, because I often complain that I want to get more done in games, Distilled has hit, every single time I've played it, it feels exactly right. 7 rounds gives you enough time to actually age things, to get a full 5 flavor cards on one of your alcohols, which can be tremendously rewarding. But more than that, and it starts to feel like you have too much freedom. 7 rounds in this game works well. The player aids, the game has a decent amount going on. There's 2 double-sided cards, player aids, that cover the information you need to know, including endgame scoring, including sequencing, including the distillation process. Everything you need to know is covered on those player aids. They do a great job there. There's a lot of strategies in this game, a lot of different pathways you can take in order to try to win. Now, our last game ended with over 100 points. We all had like in the range of 120 points or so, but we were all within 4 points of one another. It was that tight, and we all took different pathways. We had one person who was constantly trying to age every single thing. We had one person, I was going for all the bottles. I was trying to take a heavy bottle strategy. You're going to get a lot of endgame points if you have a bunch of bottles from different regions. You can't see them over here, but you'll have various bottles that have, let's see over here, let's try to find one. You'll have bottles, I'm telling you, they definitely exist. They definitely exist. Some of those actually do have, but they're your home region. Here we go. So you have bottles that will show you different region tokens on them, and if you get a chunk of those, you can get a bunch of points for those. Plus, I combine that with having various upgrades as well, plus the various upgrades you have over here, that I just had a ton of ways that I was getting points for having bottles, which helped me catch up mid-game, or end-game. I lost, but I only lost by 4 points, so close enough. There's going to be a lot of different things you can sell to try to build up your engine. Every time you sell something, you're giving yourself more money, allowing you to have a better thing next turn. But when you age it, you're not getting more money, so you're kind of limiting yourself there, but instead you can actually go ahead and age it, just building up points just by the fact that it's existing there. Getting your end goals. Had I gotten my end goal, I got one of my 2 end goals last game. Had I gotten both of them, I would have won. I would have gotten those extra 6 points, and it would have pushed me over. There's a lot of pathways to victory in here, from upgrading your distillery to getting a full complement of distillery upgrades can increase your tableau, give you a lot more flexibility, and give you the right, like this modern mill over here. I haven't seen this one yet. Giving you a discount of 2 on every single ingredient. I want to play this again so I can play with this card because I want to have it. Getting an early game would be tremendously cool. But yeah, there's a lot of different options you can take in Distilled. Your signature ingredient. your signature, not ingredient recipe, your signature recipe is going to be worth a chunk of points, 11 extra points for an easier recipe to do early game or relatively early game. Lots of different pathways, including these locking off the spirits. Every time you sell a spirit, you're going to take the spirit label of that spirit if there are still left. There's a bit of a fight going on for these labels because you might say, oh, I'm going for a gin, but if other players are going for gin, the gin labels are going to rapidly run out and you can still sell gin. You just won't get the spirit label and thus the reward, and there's 7 of these. So you can get all of these if you plan perfectly around it, or you could end up just not getting all of them, which is not necessarily the end of the world, but also is another factor in this game that is incredibly tight in everything it's doing. The tableau building is fun. It's not a full deck build in the typical sense, because you're building a deck, you're building a complement of cards, but it's really more like you're building a pantry. Those items are going to go into your pantry and then just as quickly leave your pantry as soon as you utilize them. So there's a little bit of tableau building in the fact that you're constantly building up an engine, getting a little bit more money, building up a little bit more of the goods in the pantry, building up your recipe list is going to give you more flexibility. But then along with that, the distillery upgrades, all these things combine to give you just enough flexibility, just enough of a feeling of increasedness in this game. Your first recipe you sell round 1 is going to give you 2 points and 5 money. But then in round 6, you're going to sell something that will give you 41 points and 17 money, which is tremendously more rewarding than that first little moonshine that you brewed in your basement. And there's a unique theme going on here. This is a game that I don't know if any game has, I mean, I'm sure there's games with alcohol as a theme, but this one has a unique theme and it executes on it well. It executes on it in terms of many different aspects of the game are thematic to the process, to what will be going on, and so it integrates that theme well into the game, perhaps at the cost of some things which we'll get to soon. But as far as things I don't like in this game, despite my appreciation for what the theme is doing, to begin with, I don't actually care about the theme. I'm not someone who particularly appreciates alcohol. Coffee is one thing. I keep saying brew for a reason. But alcohol is not something that particularly does it for me, and I know nothing about the distillation process. So while I recognize how well this theme is being executed on, I don't personally resonate with it. I like the upgrades, I like the tableau building, I like the game and the mechanics, but the actual theme just kind of bounces straight off me. It's not so much that I don't like it, it's that it's such a well executed theme that doesn't do anything for me. It's kind of just there. Past that though, the game is, excuse my pun over here, the game is like some whiskeys, a little dry. Now what I mean by that is, and this is something that is being addressed for what it's worth. So many of the cards, the distillery upgrades, love those. Some of these bottles over here, especially for the bottle collection, can be fun. Some of these items over here do have abilities that help. But many of the things, most of the ingredients, and many of the items just come down to knowing what they cost, how much money they give you, and how many points they give you. It's more just a number counting game than it is about anything interesting going on there, and I'd love to see more interesting things going on there. So this is something that I know is being addressed, by the way, because it's one of the things that very often some of the ingredients just feel like it just comes down to the numbers on them. It doesn't come down to anything else. There's no degree of interest past we have a whole deck full of ingredients and there's not a single ability, just numbers. So it works. The game works. The engine works. Everything it's doing works. But that aspect of the game, I do find a little dry. Now, like I said already, they are dealing with that. This is very much a prototype. It's still being revised, still being adjusted, and they're adding a bunch of adding a bunch of text, both to some of the alcohols as well. You can purchase some various alcohols. They'll give you abilities there, as well as adding things to the various ingredients to make them more interesting, to give them more reasons to think about one versus the other. So, but I haven't played with those yet, so I can't overly comment on that, except to say that they are addressing that aspect. Past that, my bigger thing, I'd say, not necessarily a bigger thing, it's not true, not my bigger thing, but the other thing that is not necessarily being addressed is going to be there is degrees of luck in this game. Remember that process of distilling alcohol where you draw something off the top and the bottom? Early game, it's not going to be that big a deal. But late game, you can have someone who just has a bad draw and they plan for having 15 cards in the deck and they still manage to draw off that one card that they needed. You could have, 15 cards and drawing 2 from them, it's not that ridiculous of a chance to happen. And it does happen. But the problem is in a game with 7 rounds, with only 7 processes, you're only going to distill things 7 times in this game. Having 2 failures when someone else has none can be the difference between winning and losing in this incredibly tight game. In other words, it's mechanically tight. This game is so sound in what it's doing. It's well balanced and well executed on, and yet you could have a single failed distill process be the difference between winning and losing. It could literally come down to the luck of the draw, which I don't love that. As far as what I can see others not liking, it's going to be pretty much one thing, which is the teach in this game is not intuitive. Every time I've tried teaching this game, and I don't know how well you picked up on it when I tried doing it here, every time I've tried teaching this game, I have found it doesn't really click with people. Now, to be fair, I don't think I've taught it to anyone who actually knows the process of making alcohol, and I think that they would understand it more. Because I literally have to stare at people in the faces while they stare at me blankly and talk about how you're adding yeast and water, and you need at least one sugar, and if you fail that, and then you're drawing cards on the top and the bottom. There's a lot of sound aspects to the thematic integration of the theme that work well to make this a solid game for people who appreciate it, but might make it a lot more confusing for people who are used to some standard game mechanics, and the things going on here just feel a little bit out of place. Now, for what it's worth, I've had it, every single time I've taught it, I've had it so that by the time you're done with one round, maybe 2 rounds at most, it clicks and you understand exactly what's happening. It's not that the game is difficult to understand, it's that it's not intuitive to understand. Once you get through that, it is pretty easy to actually jump into it. As far as final thoughts and rating on Distilled, I wrestled with this one a bit because let's get into it. So to begin with, this one is a 3 out of 5 for me. My rating scale in general is going to be 1s are bad games, 2s are games that are not for me or have too many issues with them, 3s are good games, 4s are great games, and 5s are games that I am sad when you don't like them because I want to play them more. Now, Distilled for me is one that I kind of want to give it a 4 because it's this close for me. That the game is mechanically sound. It is a lot of fun when I play it. I've enjoyed it every single time, but also I feel slightly irritated at the lack of abilities going on in this game, especially in the ingredient list, as well as that luck aspect. And one of my 2 complaints is being addressed, and one of those, just having that one addressed may well push us into a 4 for me, but I haven't played with that yet. And so I can't give it a 4 based on the potential that I think it will be. Right now, it's a game that I enjoy with a theme that doesn't do it for me and a good mechanical engine, but a few complaints and nitpicks as to why this isn't for me. But at the same time, it's one that some of those are being addressed, which is why this is a 3 for now, but one that's potentially a 4 in the final game. I'll have to actually play with those adjustments and see. In any case, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Once again, this game is on Kickstarter. There'll be a link down below. Make sure to check it out. It is, well, it's a very unique game with a very unique theme that is very well executed. Until next time, have a good one.